I'll do that line again.
No, I think it's fine.
Oh, I see.
I mean, we're doing this like natural. Like we're just having
he's
conversation.
going to publish this even.
No, I don't know about that. But yeah.
Welcome to Nourish by Spinneys, the podcast which promises to inspire you to eat well and live well. I'm Tiffany Eslick.
And I'm Devina Divecha. This is a space where we hope to nourish your heart and soul. On this show, we chat with leading players in the food community, from farmers to foodies, as well as health and well-being experts. It's all about engaging conversations and fresh ideas.
Today's episode might just be the best gift our producer Chirag has ever received.
Or his worst nightmare, could go either way.
He's going to love it because it's an entire episode with just Devina and me.
I thought it would be a good idea to look back at our first season, maybe some of our highlights, and what's coming up as well.
Starting with, I suppose, that we finally got our podcast out the door.
Yes, I mean, it might have taken us a few episodes to really get into our stride, but I really enjoyed bringing these longer interviews out to supplement our written features in the magazine and on the website. It's just been great to be able to tell some amazing stories. And we've had some fun adding the clips to Instagram and TikTok as well.
The first episode with Hatem Matar, he's just born to do podcasts. I mean, he's so good at it. And I think his story is so intriguing and interesting. And so I love that.
Started smoking backyard. Brisket is a giant chunk of meat. You're talking about 6 kilos of meat. What do you do with the rest? So invite neighbors, the neighbors, their neighbors, and then their neighbors, and then their neighbors. And then word of mouth turned into a alter ego. Respectable member of society, vice president of an oil and gas company. That was my Bruce Wayne. Well dressed, well kept, smelled nice. And then this Batman character came out, apron on.
Right.
You know how Superman does the thing?
Yeah.
Alter ego came out, this character that was cooking at night and nobody knew his identity and he was just delivering brisket. Catering business out of the backyard, then turned into events. Then turned into a proper company because all of that stuff was pre-company. Then turned into a restaurant at Time Out. Then 3 restaurants in the city. And now international expansion signed yesterday. And maybe world's 50 best on Mars. First barbecue restaurant to win it. Who knows?
Why not?
I don't know. I'm just kind of winging it.
I also really enjoyed working with Pitfire and being in the kitchen behind the scenes. And, in that tiny spot in JLT, basically took over the whole restaurant. I was leaning over the pizza, trying to watch what's going on. You were on the other side. Chirag, where were you? Stuck to the ceiling. And we made it work. The photographer was going crazy. That was, and Bill and Michelle are just such wonderful characters.
I really felt to be great at this business, I had to understand bread, so this is something that we put a lot of energy into. And it's frankly, if you're into baking, everybody will understand this, that there's no end to it. I'm always looking for the next nugget. And I would say that maybe on average once a year, I find something that's okay, there's an 8% pump, to the finished crust in one way or another,
He's a mad scientist.
Yeah. It sounds like it.
I live with a mad scientist.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great to actually watch while you guys were recording that one. And I think for me, I enjoyed learning a lot through this entire season about, food culture, ingredients from around the world, and how different people approach food in their own perspective. Episodes like the one I recorded with Ambet Ocampo, who was the Filipino historian. He was here during the Emirates Lit Fest. And just to understand so much more about Filipino ingredients and cuisine and kind of how it came to be, that was fascinating. I think when we've done tastings on the show, those have been fun. I did the Silk Route tasting with Chef Carmen at Bricks. I don't know how many people wanted to hear me eating, but that was part of the episode as well. And it was great to learn more about that.
Everything that you have, we make it in-house.
Oh my God. It's really nice.
The drink is a very special one. So we create a coffee kombucha. And from this coffee kombucha, we make a cocktail, a very special flavor.
I have not really tasted a flavor like this in a drink.
But because we understood through the books and through everything that we've been reading, that many of the drinks that they've been having through the way is being fermented. And obviously kombucha is a fermented drink. So I think that this one is one of those flavors that they goes very well along with the fireplace, being outside, having your nice brioche.
They were all, each episode, we learned something here.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Gosh, it's hard to choose.
And I mean, Chirag, we should probably ask you as well. You've
hello.
been, hello, you've been observing us silently behind the scenes over the last year. What about you? What are your highlights?
I'm going to say the bloopers, probably. It's fun. It happens. I mean, it's a very natural thing that happens, right? Like these bloopers when we're trying to record and we fumble through words, or like we have just very, very. I mean, there are jokes that we haven't aired because we probably
we
couldn't.
can
never
will.
We can never air.
Never, ever.
But it's just been fun, right? It keeps the room light. I think it's also allowed us, like, we've aired some of the bloopers because they just add this little fun side to the show. But on a more serious note, I think from a content side, I think it's the variety of the episodes, right? So we've had just sit-down interviews, like you mentioned. We've had tastings, which has been great. Learning about how restaurants are conceptualized and come together. So we had like Table, which by the way was just a weird on-site situation, right? Because they were in the middle of construction, and we were kind of trying to figure out how are we going to make this work. We had a masterclass, right? We've learned about Christmas trees.
Yeah.
So it's just there's a whole range of things that we've done in just a year or a little less than a year. So for me, that's been the fun part, right? Is every episode tends to be a little bit different. We're trying to kind of meld something that's an experience with a conversation and try to do that more and more.
And I think to your point about, how we've been on site and trying to figure out what we'll do, I think I've enjoyed those the most. Like you said, with Table, even with Pitfire, going to Below Farm and actually touring the whole farm and learning more about the mushrooms. While I love like the sit down interviews as well, there's something quite magical about being able to actually be there in the thick of it.
Absolutely. I think like being in people's environments. So when we were with Stasha at 21 grams, in that beautiful private dining space, but just to see her colors and her art and the vibe in the restaurant, it added to the interview. And the masterclass, with Bread Ahead, that was fun. I mean, being at Expo when it was dead quiet, and then making this amazing focaccia in a kitchen, so it's on site. So maybe that's something to take away for the next season.
We'll put Chirag through more difficult situations of trying to figure out how to set everything up.
Maybe we choose the most impossible situations.
Well, maybe this time I'll actually have to be in a ceiling for it to work. No, but I think there's something nice about that, right? Because again, this is it's an audio medium, but I think blending the experience with it makes it fun. It's also like speaks to all the stuff that you guys are trying to do. So, I mean, you think about like the trips you've taken where you're going to meet suppliers and you're kind of the reason you're doing that is because you want to see not only where everything's coming from, but also you want to be part of that journey and within that, right? So even when we think of Pitfire, we were in, what was it? Is it 300 something square feet space?
Yeah, I mean, it was tiny.
It was tiny, right? But it's not. I think it's only when I left that I was like, wow, that was like we were there for 4 hours or something.
Yeah.
And actually, just what you said about like being in that tiny space and the challenge, I think a recurring theme from pretty much everyone we've spoken to is that however they've found solutions or creativity, it's always been from a challenge, and I think you need to put yourself in a slightly difficult environment or situation to bring out your best often.
I think from a creative point, like it's also been a bit of an experiment, right? So we've tried different things. We've seen some episodes resonate. We've seen some. I mean, most of them have. We've seen some conversations maybe not do that well, right? And we're kind of still learning that process of saying, okay, does this make for a good listening experience at the end? Does it not? How much of it should be the conversation? How much of it should be like say the masterclass was a good example where we were trying to do that. So and we were doing we were going back and forth. So again, it was like a tricky conversation to have, even with him, right? Like you were kind of going back and forth. Or he got interrupted by an alarm going off because he had to go pull up meds at some point.
I forgot about the alarm.
Yeah. There's so much more to Bread Ahead as a brand. You've got like your school side, like on.
Do you need to jump up?
Yeah.
He did warn us about this.
Right back after a short break.
Oh, focaccia is pretty. This is the beauty of being live in a bakery.
Yes.
Yeah.
And all the smells.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I think those are interesting experiments, and then obviously would love to hear from everybody, people who are listening to say like, oh, I really enjoyed this or I didn't, and we've seen some of that happen on social.
The
on
feedback
Instagram.
has been great. We've got our dedicated fans. I've got a couple who send me, things on Instagram or on WhatsApp saying, listen to this, and it's heartwarming that we've got these dedicated listeners, and it's interesting to see who is liking what and how they're reacting. I mean, we had a lot of people loving Baby Spice. But also, I think there's a real thirst for homegrown content here. So yeah, I mean, we pretty much focused on that otherwise,
Yeah.
and that those do really, really
Yeah,
well because
definitely.
we're such a tight community here.
Yeah.
Yeah, even with episodes like Hatem's episode, like you
Yeah.
mentioned, did really well because of that kind of that story, that
Yeah.
local homegrown
Yeah.
story that those do so well. It's nice to see.
I think what's fascinating on the social stuff is like we've, for example, put out an episode and then it's the next day that we're going to actually post about it. And before Spinneys has actually put it out,
Yeah.
we have people already sharing the episode, being like, "I heard this conversation was great," and I'm like, "Dude, we haven't marketed this yet, right? Like, it's already coming
Thanks for
back.
doing that
Yeah,
for us.
this,
Yeah.
I mean, that's wonderful, right? Like,
It
that's
is.
it's
It's
a great
encouraging
source of feedback in terms of saying, okay, people are enjoying what
Yeah.
we're putting out.
People actually listen to us.
Yay!
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So, both Tiff and I have mentioned like a couple of episodes that we enjoyed recording or what we learned or what we took away from it, but you haven't. You've been very, vague, Chirag. Tell us more.
I don't think
Which were your favorites?
Yeah.
I don't think I've been vague. I've just been because I'm looking at it constantly from almost from a concept point of view, right? To be like,
Yeah.
okay, this episode we're trying to deliver X, this episode we're trying to deliver something else. So I'm always in that zone. I think that's the
Yeah.
reason. To some degree, I think my favorite would be Chef Carmen's, only because I thought that it was just such a lovely blend of experience and conversation together, because it was unique in terms of anything I've produced.
Okay.
And it was this like perfect blend. There was so much to learn. There was history. There was like her journey. There was like a lot of ums and ahs because food was
I
being
was eating.
eaten and
I'm so
tasted.
sad I had to miss that one because
Yeah.
it was such a hit, and I know her food is beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
I've
So,
tried
so
it many
good,
times,
yeah.
but yeah.
And then she was super sweet, by the way. Like she
Yeah.
ordered me a separate dessert at the end just because I
You're
couldn't taste
vegan.
it.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah, but we forgave you for that fact long ago.
Yeah. and I mean, it was just nice. So the overall
Yeah.
experience, I think, for me that day was probably one of my favorites to put together. But then, of course, we've had so many highlights, right? Like just getting behind the scenes with Pitfire. Me and Bill had such a long conversation while we were waiting in the back for the pizzas to come out and the photography was going on.
Yeah.
And it was just very insightful, right? Like, 'cause these are nourishing things
Yes.
that
Yeah.
happen, right? In the
Yeah.
process of doing that. So
And I
that's great.
think with most of the episodes, actually, we've ended up tasting some amazing food.
Absolutely,
Whether
yeah.
because we're doing an actual tasting for the episode or just because, we're shooting the food. So it's like, okay, well, let's eat this now.
Yeah.
We had some of that corn at table
Yeah.
with Chef Carlos, the pizzas and the apple pie
Yeah.
at Pitfire. So
The focaccia
Oh
bread
my God,
ahead. I mean,
yeah.
I ate that as I was walking to the car. As I did admit on air.
And on Sheikh Zayed Road as
Yeah,
well.
Sheikh Zayed
just
Road.
like munching away.
dripping in garlic bread.
But I think also goes back to you saying how tight knit the community is in the homegrown aspect of the community, where they're just so excited to have us, to talk to us, and then also we're like, "But you've got to try X,
Yeah.
you've got to
Yeah.
try Y." Right? Tasha was the same way. She was like, "Well, where are you going? Like, we've got to eat, right?" And
Yeah.
it's just one of those things that I think is just very nice.
Oh, and we got the mushroom grow kits as well.
Yeah, how are your mushrooms doing?
I don't know.
Oh. That's
They're with my mom.
Oh, okay.
They're not with me. I have a cat.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break and be right back.
Welcome back. I'm Tiffany,
I'm Devina.
And I'm Chirag.
and you're listening to the season wrap up of Nourish by Spinneys.
Okay, so where were we?
I think let's talk about some of the themes that we saw over the various episodes, starting perhaps with the Nourish question, which I constantly forgot to ask people, and you needed to remind me.
That's all right. I forgot in one episode as well. So, for our listeners, and just in case you didn't know, we asked just about every guest, well, nearly, who came on the show what nourishes their soul.
Which is, I think, a good moment as well for us to kind of, or I can ask you guys that question, right? Because although I think we had one guest who actually spun that question back at you, Tiff,
I
at
can't
some
remember
point,
what I answered.
which is good.
Yeah,
because that
I mean, I
means we
probably
could get a
changed my
fresh
mind
answer.
every
It's
2
fine.
seconds when it nourishes my soul.
Yeah, I think maybe the right question is like, what is currently nourishing your soul?
Yes.
So okay, let's start with you, Tiff. What's currently nourishing?
Can
your
we start
soul?
with Davina? I need to think.
Okay, let's start with Devina then.
Okay, so what's currently nourishing my soul? I think the same thing as the last couple of years, dance. Dance is still nourishing my soul, still going strong with that. For people who are listening and maybe confused, I dance about, 3 to 7 times a week, every night, in classes, choreography classes. And I've told you to come, Tiff.
Yes, I will, I promise.
But yeah, that's a place where I I'm able to really be creative and let out just a lot of my emotions and express them in a way that I can't with any other medium. So dance, still very much dance.
For me, I think look, food and travel since I was probably 3 years old when I first went on a trip have always nourished my soul. But I think what's sort of inspiring me at the moment is this great community that we have in the UAE. We are we're all living far away from home. Well, you grew up here, but a lot of us are. And I just, the more and more we chat to people, I realize how I'm involved so much with the food community and how supportive everyone is. And, I'm wanting to start a breakfast club, for example. And so many people have been, even those who've interviewed have said, do it and we'll help you. And I like that. And I'm liking being part of the fabric. And so I want to just explore more of that and spend more time with people who inspire me and I can see as expanders and who champion this support network.
Yeah.
Oh, it's lovely.
What nourishes your soul, Chirag?
Oh, I didn't realize I was going to be asked the
You
question.
asked us, yeah.
Generally, I would say conversations because that's something that really gets me. But at the moment, I think my answer is going to be more me time. So it's just like the end of the week, the fact that I take that downtime, I've set aside. So I find that actually very nourishing. And in December, I was away for about 3 weeks. It wasn't like I wasn't, doing anything strenuous. And I came back just feeling very agitated. And it took me a while to realize the only reason was because for 3 weeks in a row, I had just not taken time out for myself and gone for my walks by myself and just relaxed. So I think, that's definitely something that's very nourishing for me.
It's so important as well.
Definitely. And I think we saw like some interesting themes across the answers that we got from our guests as well. People talking about sustainability, of course. A lot of people talking about kind of having some kind of purpose.
And just people actually realizing their dreams.
Yeah.
They might not have known it at the beginning of how they were going to get there, but they've all found ways. And have made things work. And I think that's hugely inspiring.
I think I really actually like this question for that reason, is because it's kind of like this take a minute, just let's not talk about work. Although for a lot of people, actually, the answer was work.
Related,
like Matthew mentioned, baking.
And I think that's because people are living their passion.
Exactly.
So many of the people.
Yeah.
I loved what Trina said, our Christmas tree producer, our grower. She said that freedom nourishes her
That was a
soul.
loaded one.
Yeah, that was. It was really
deep.
beautiful. Deep. Yeah.
Nourish my soul. Well, freedom. You are, in a way, a little free. Yeah. And you can decide. And if you don't feel well one day, you just work harder the next day. So, I think it's the freedom I like.
That's lovely. And I think that's so true. If I think of like your farm, you have no fences because you just want the animals to roam free and you want people to you said you want people just to walk around. So I think that really,
exactly.
You're echoing what is important to you.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we've had
I think we call this a blooper.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we go, Tiff, what do you have lined up for the summer ahead?
Yeah, so I am heading to South Africa for winter.
Yes.
My love of cold weather. So my mum keeps messaging saying, it's freezing. I've got the fireplaces going. And I'm like, yes, please let it last. I want rain. I want the fires. So I'm going to South Africa for almost 3 weeks. And then I'm thinking of going to Portugal, maybe in late August, just because I would like to try and get out every month of a summer, because it does get so awfully hot here.
Yeah.
That's about it. What about you?
Nothing much. I'll still be in Dubai for the summer, so it'll be a quiet one. But I might be adopting a second cat.
Oh, no.
So I'm gonna have to spend some time introducing the 2 cats of the household in the summer. So it's a good downtime to be able to do that.
Yes.
So that might just be my plan: stay in Dubai, eat food, introduce cats to each other, and not lose my mind.
And we'll be planning our new season.
We will.
So,
Yes.
yes, we need to. Yeah.
What about you, Chirag?
More podcasts, actually. But just like with this, we have a lot of stuff that's coming back in September. We have a lot of activity around COP that's happening, which is happening in November, December. So it's a lot of stuff that's in the run up to to September and the months to come. So that's kind of where the focus is going to be. More conversations, interesting chats,
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
and air conditioning.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that brings us to the end of our first season. I'm quite sad, actually,
Yeah.
but excited for season 2. Thank you for listening and joining us on this journey. We'll be back again with more conversations, tastings, experiences, food, and of course, things that will nourish your heart and soul in late August, early September.
This episode was brought to you by Spinneys and is hosted by me, Devina Divecha, and Tiffany Eslick. We're produced by Chirag Desai, and artwork is by Michelle Clements and Jihan Yusuf. You can follow Spinneys on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok for more, and visit us at spinneys.com, where you can shop for fresh produce and a variety of local and exclusive products.
Have a lovely summer. Be cool.
We won't end this.
Okay, let me change that. Have a lovely summer.
It's happening.
Be cool is like, be cold. Find coolness. Have a lovely summer.